Sixers. 10, 9, 8, 76ers.
What's going on, guys? This is UK 76ers. My name is Ben Glasspool, and today we are talking about the return of the Sixers basketball, the return of the NBA season. We played last night. This is the morning after the night before. As you all know, the Sixers did just about win. I'm not too sure what I was supposed to be expecting. Perhaps I expected us to blow it out. I'm not sure. I think maybe I was underrating the Washington Wizards in that sense, but we got off to a win. That's all that matters. There's one for the W column. So we're going to go straight and dissect that. But before we do, I just want to say what's going on with this channel. As you will know, I haven't posted too much recently, and that is because I have had work to do. I've just finished my dissertation, so all my time and effort will now be going into this, into producing content regularly, i.e. when the Sixers play, or if there's any huge breaking stories, hint, hint, wink, wink, if we trade for James Harden. But until that time, it will just continue to hopefully keep developing, and sooner or later it'll get to where I want it to be. So just bear with me, and I'm sure we'll get there soon enough. So anyway, let's just dive straight in. So the first thing that grabbed me about this game, I want to say it was the first play of the game, is Simmons took an elbow jumper. Now, it's not the three-point shot that we're all expecting. I mean, we always have this hope that he'll come in and just almost turn into Steph Curry overnight. That's not going to happen. But he took a jumper from the elbow, and yeah, it missed. But it's something. It's a start. It's not what we've seen before. It's different. So that, I don't want to say it fills me with a whole lot of hope, but it gives me a bit of something. Do you know what I mean? It's something to build off. But you know, he had a good game overall. But we'll get go into his game a bit more in just a moment. But it started off very well for us. You know, Embiid got his shots in. Curry had a few jumpers landing, which is a rarity. If you know what we were up to beforehand, is that we just didn't have anyone scoring essentially. And you know, Seth Curry had a fantastic game, and the shots he was hitting were different to the ones we had last season. In that, well, it was off from a shooter that was a lethal shooter, and that just bodes well so brilliantly for us in the future. But, you know, what I really want to talk about is, of course, Shake Milton. Shake Milton came into this game, and I think some people are still unconvinced about what he can do. I guess there's always a bit of creeping doubt, even for the biggest of Sixer fans like myself. But he came in, he got 19 points, 2 or 4 from 3, had a plus 33 on the plus minus, plus 33. He is the real deal. He whenever he came on the court, it was, okay, thank God Shake Milton's back. You would never have thought you would be saying that last year, a year ago today. You would never thought, oh, we need Shake Milton on the court right away. And he was perfect. He came on, he was aggressive going to the line. Whenever he went up to shoot, it just felt as if it was always dropping. And it was just a breath of fresh air. Him and Tyrese Maxey, especially when they were playing, it was just fantastic. To see a rookie on his debut coming completely fearless, you know, again, driving to the rack, speculative passes, putting out to Mike Scott in the corner, hitting for 3. So Maxey finished on 6, 2 and 2 off of 10 minutes. He probably could have played a bit more. Some of the rotations were a bit iffy. I felt it felt a lot like 2K. I did actually, you know, how you have on 2K the CPU, they just have your starters, your bench, your starters, your bench. And I still feel now, one of Simmons or Embiid should always be on the court. I know that's what the Wizards said. One of Beal or Westbrook should always be on the court, and I think we should have that as well. Just so we have a bit of a leader, just a bit of a presence on the court. I mean, I know, look, Shake and Maxey were fantastic, but just having that all-star presence, that someone you can just rely on, I think psychologically as well as for the performance as well, that is huge. I do think, you know, Doc will figure that out soon enough. I mean, if I can figure it out, I'm sure he can. I mean, come on now. But, you know, we started fantastically. It looked good. I think the first quarter, we were up by 4. Second quarter was tight, but the Wizards did just about edge it. So by the half, they were up by a point. And then the third quarter kicked in, and the hope was this third quarter hoodoo would have left with Brett Brown. It didn't. We could not buy a bucket. I think we got our first points of the quarter 6 minutes into the third quarter. 6 minutes. The Wizards were getting whatever they wanted. Our transition defense was poor. All the shots the Wizards wanted, they got. Be that from Beal, be that from Westbrook driving to the cup, or be that Bertans, who once again just causes so many issues. I mean, he just doesn't miss. It's crazy how good that guy can shoot. What's equally as crazy is that he is on a contract a fraction of the size of Tobias Harris is. A fraction. And look, I do like Tobias, and I don't want to say one game makes a season, but we all know who would fit better in this team. I'm not going to get too far into that just yet on the Tobias slander. But anyway, the Wizards were getting anything they wanted, to the point where I think I want to say they're about 10, 13 points ahead at one point. This was after we were leading double digits as well, so it just flipped on its head so quickly, which, that's just what basketball does. And we just couldn't find an answer. Actually, the answer did come. It came when we brought Shake Milton back on. Which he's such a breath of fresh air, isn't it? It's just fantastic to have someone like him. It's sixth man of the year. It's so possible. So possible with Shake Milton. Most improved sixth man. This season is his season. He's going to do something unbelievably special. But anyway, we did end up finding our feet just about, and that was when the fourth quarter came along, and when Embiid said, I'm just going to take this, I'm going to sort this out, I'm going to win us this game, and he did. And look, we all see people like, why isn't he in the paint? Why isn't he in the low post? He can't always be in the low post. And he took it to the mid-range, and he dominated there. He dominated on the mid-range, top of the key, and in the post, of course. The bloke dominates. Admittedly, he's against Thomas Bryant, Robin Lopez. They're not the biggest stars ever, but they're not bad fives by any means. And he dominated. He got about 14 points in the fourth quarter, finished on 29 and 14 overall, and he won us this game. He willed us over the line. Simmons had a decent stat line. 16, 9 and 7, 2 steals, 3 blocks, a very good stat line in a Defensive Player of the Year stat line. But what frustrated me with Simmons is that it felt as if he could have done more. And I look at how Westbrook played, and Westbrook played fantastically. Again, he got 21, 11, and 15, which is just an absolutely mental stat line. And I look at how Westbrook got his points, because we all know his jumpers, you'll live with him shooting at any point in the game. So he's got to get to the cup. So what does he do? He rounds the corner at pace, and he drives hard. And I look at Simmons, and I'm like, why aren't you doing this? He can be explosive, he can be quick, he can be nippy. He can do everything Westbrook does. I mean, Westbrook does that at an elite level, of course, but he can do what Westbrook does still to a lesser extent and still be effective. And he just didn't. Sometimes it felt a bit sluggish. It was a lot of post-ups. I'm sure you guys noticed as well. There were an awful lot of post-ups. But I always want to just turn the corner and go hard at the rim. And I'm not sure if that's, he doesn't want to get fouled. The free throws again. We always talk about his shot, but him sorting his free throws out so he's at a really respectable clip is so important. And look, it's one game, it's one sample size. It still didn't really look too different. But we got to give him time, and that if I give Simmons time, then it's got to be to give Tobias Harris time. I mean, Tobias had a stinker. He had a real stinker. Nothing would seem to drop. He seemed hesitant to do everything. It seemed like he was overthinking everything. There's always that bit of self-doubt always seemed to creep in. Wasn't getting aggressive, perhaps snatching at chances. And like I said, if I'm going to give Simmons the time I think he needs to get better, then I'm going to have to do the same to Tobias. Like, we know how bad the Tobias contract is, and if there's an opportunity to trade the right trade, not just anyone, the right trade, if there's an opportunity to make the right trade, do it. But at the same time, I'm going to give this guy time. He's a fantastic bloke. We've seen that last season with the social justice stuff. That doesn't mean he should play because he's a great guy. That's not how the NBA works. But the slander I saw definitely seemed to not take into account just how good a guy he is. I think he's a glue guy in the dressing room. I really do. And I think Doc just needs to get him back to what he used to do down at the Clippers, and that isn't just going to happen overnight. You've got to give it time. So I will give Tobias time, but he knows as well as anyone this wasn't a good game for him. Similarly with Danny Green, wasn't the best game. Defensively okay, but we expect way more from Harris than we do Danny Green. So I digress. Well, we'll go back to this bench, which seemingly saved this team, ironically enough. Howard is just brilliant in pick and rolls with Maxey, going hard, getting the rebounds in. Hard to the rim. I think he had a really good alley oop, I believe, that he finished with some aplomb. But it's also just what I'm hearing about Dwight. Look, we know there's a lot of perceptions about how he's can be a bad guy around the dressing room. But I do think that Lakers experience really humbled him. I think it really did, to the point where I think he's a valuable member in that locker room. What he can bring to Embiid. Because let's not forget, Dwight used to be the big man, the big man in the league, the dominant force, which he was in Orlando. He can give Embiid some pointers and some help on how to not only to be that dominant big man, but how dealing with it. The media attention that comes with it and the scrutiny. Because we all know how much scrutiny Dwight has got. And he just seems to be the guy on the bench that's really energetic, getting people going. And you can't have too many of those people. It's fantastic to see, and I really like him on this team. But, so the game finished. 113, 107. We just about crawled over the line. It's the Knicks next. But I didn't really want to talk about this, but I think I'm going to have to. And that is this James Harden trade. And look, this video was solely to go over yesterday's game. But we're going to have to talk about it. It's the elephant in the room. And those who follow me will know I am not the biggest fan of this trade. And that's not me saying I don't like James Harden. I do really like James Harden. I think he's a fantastic player. I think if there's a way to get him without giving up Simmons, go for it. James Harden is a better player than Ben Simmons. It's obvious that is a fact. The issue I have is James Harden has 3 years left on his deal, $41 million per year. He's worth every penny. The money isn't the issue. It's the 3 years. So say we do this trade. Say James Harden comes to the Sixers for Ben Simmons plus maybe a few first rounders, maybe Matisse or whatever else the Rockets are asking for. Say this happens. We've got 3 guaranteed years of James Harden. We cannot just assume he will re-sign. We've got 3 years of James Harden. Does James Harden and Joel Embiid tip us over the edge over the likes of Kyrie and KD? It certainly makes us more competitive. Whether or not we'll, beat them in a 7-game series, I don't know. Potentially. Say we beat them. We get to the finals. Does James Harden and Embiid beat AD and LeBron? Again, potentially. Wouldn't bank on it. Even if, the Clippers get to the final, does it beat PG and Kawhi? If they're both on top form, that's a really big ask. So, when I put it like that, or when I think about it like this, perhaps I'm just being glass half empty, I'm being too pessimistic. But when I put it like that and I'm thinking, does this get us a title? And I think someone put it quite nicely on Twitter, is that it is more likely that James Harden comes to the Sixers, disrupts the locker room, Joel Embiid ends up wanting out. It is more likely that happens than we win a title. Which I think is bleak. It's a bleak outlook, but that's kind of true. And if that's true, why are you doing this? Surely it makes more sense to wait for KD and Kyrie to go past their primes. Similarly with LeBron, he's not got too many years left. When they're all gone, this is then when Embiid and Simmons comes to the fore, when Doncic and Porzingis comes to the fore, Murray and Jokic, Tatum and Brown. Those are all good, and Giannis and wherever the hell he's going to be. I mean, I think the extension has him at the Bucks, but you never know, do you? You'd back Simmons and developed Simmons and Embiid over those two. Well, any of those duos. So why don't you just wait for those two to develop, and then in 4 or 5 years, when they've done so, and it's not just their development. There's Matisse's development. There's Shake's development. There's Tyrese Maxey's development. awful lot of development across the board. When that's all done, we've then got those duos to compete with, which I think are far more beatable than the ones they are now. And Harden, like, with the re-signing thing, you could say, oh, what if Harden re-signs? Well, like, there's no guarantee. And if there's no guarantee, we are in a hugely precarious position. So if we get 3 years of Harden, which has no title, then we've given away our future in Ben Simmons, who he would go down to the Rockets and I'm sure he'd tear it up and then would look over and be like, oh, we shouldn't have got rid of him, should we? Because I'm sure, like, we all know he's a jump shot away from being a top 5 player, easily. He can do everything at elite level almost, but shoot. You don't just get rid of that guy unless you are absolutely sure that what you are getting back in return wins you a title. So to the guys in the front office, I mean, they would never be watching this, but if for whatever reason they stumbled across this trade is entirely down to, can you guarantee that in the 3 years we have of James Harden, should this trade go forward, that we win a title? If you can't guarantee that, you can't do a trade. That's just my opinion. Because Harden will start ring chasing. Harden's at the point of his career when he's like, oh, goodness me, I need to get a ring. People always held it against him already. Oh, he hasn't got a ring. He's not a team player. He's all about the stats. He's looking for rings now. If he doesn't get it in Philly, he goes somewhere else. If he doesn't get it there, he goes somewhere else. Loyalty will mean nothing. And understandably so. I mean, we're all do the same thing in his position. But that means that you've only got 3 years. And if you don't get it done in those 3 years, well, then we are in serious trouble because we traded away everything for 3 years of Harden to no avail. But that is my take on the Harden trade. That was, of course, my thoughts of the Wizards game. The Sixers are back. The stress is back. The fun is back. Enjoy your Christmas, everyone. The next game, I believe, is the Knicks. Again, I will have post-game thoughts on that one. Please bear in mind that this by no means is the finished article with what I want for this channel. I do really want to improve it and get it better in terms of quality, camera quality and mic quality and just all-round quality. But we'll get there soon enough. So until that time, it'll just be me chatting basketball. But yeah, like I said, have a good Christmas, everyone. I'm sure I'll see you all very soon. Stay safe. This pandemic will be over soon enough, let's hope. And go Sixers.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.